this is the outline of MRCOG Part 2. Now, the basic problem which you people were facing was how to make notes. I got a message that, ma'am, I'm making notes, and at the end of the day, I'm copying the entire guideline, and my notebook is a replica of the Green Top guideline. Who was that girl? Who messaged me this? Right, I loved it because she's not the only one who messaged me this. Every student is messaging the same, right? Every student is messaging the same, that, ma'am, we don't understand that what to actually write and what to skip in that actually. So you people are absolutely right in having this difficulty, because when we are starting, we are not understanding anything as well. That's absolutely right. How you understand when you go to the books, you see, okay, this question has been asked. So I don't understand. So if I'm writing everything from the guideline, isn't it better that I take a printout of the guideline and I start reading that? I mean, why am I writing with my own hands if I'm writing the complete guideline in my notebook, right? And this feeling is like so natural and so understandable. All right. Now, what you have to do is that, see, making notes would not be a one-day task. It would take 2 to 3 months to get completed. Now, you people would be astonished that, what is ma'am saying? I mean, one guideline, 3 months? The answer is yes, Noor. The answer is yes. How would it happen? Now, I'm not your mentor. Now, for the time being, I'm a student, right? And I am reading the guideline for today. And that guideline is Management of Ovarian Hyperstimulation Syndrome, right? It's Green Top Guideline number 5, published in February 2016. And I am making my notes from the management of OHSS. I don't know anything. Thank you very much, Ira. I don't know anything, right? I'm just reading it for the first time, right? And I would just pick up the basic points, how we are going to do that. Now, when you pick up a guideline, you always have to remember, as I told you earlier, the priority is always to the recommendations. Here comes your first question. Students, they say that, ma'am, I've got less time. So is it okay that we only do the summary, or we have to go to the complete guideline? My answer is always that first go of complete guideline gives you some sort of an internal confidence. All right, I've gone through the guideline, nothing is missing. And if you only see, or if you only read the summary by someone else, or for that matter, even on my own website, if you just go to the summary, it would have some feeling that you're missing out something, right? I can understand that few guidelines are bigger and few guidelines are smaller. So the bigger guidelines before starting makes you have tachycardia and palpitation. Oh my God, before starting, you are tired. That on the first page, you feel, oh my God, 100 pages. So you stay on the first page forever. I can totally understand this feeling. So what do we have to do? We have to tell ourselves, and we have to settle ourselves that recommendations are very, very important, right? Now, for the newcomers, I would like to tell you that what recommendations are. The step number 1 in making the notes is that you have to put all the recommendations separate. Let's read the recommendations which are most important. Prachi, I totally understand. I'm your type as well. Yes, Prachi is my friend. So let's make Prachi's notes. Okay, friends, Prachi is making these notes. We read the recommendations, and that's very important that I told you from the beginning that none of the point from the recommendation should be missing, right? So on the left-hand side, we have got the Management of Ovarian Hyperstimulation Syndrome, and these are Prachi's notes. What you have to do in the first go is that there are 2 ways. If you people are good in writing, for example, if you talk about myself, there are 2 different types of students, right? If you talk about myself, I had a good memory with my handwriting. So if you take out time for guideline in the beginning, that would save you forever, not only in MRCOG Part 2, even in your MRCOG Part 3. Now, everyone has to understand, please, the recommendations are which points? The recommendations are these bold points. These are the recommendations, right? These bold points are the recommendations. In few guidelines, they are within the guideline, and in few guidelines which were published later, they're from the very start. All the bold points and the recommendations are together. So the first goal of the guideline is that you put all the executive summary of recommendations on your notes. If you have time, please write it down. If you have got a busy schedule that day, please don't leave it. Add, copy, paste, add all the recommendations on one page, and please take a printout. I would prefer that MRCOT Part 2 students, they do have a printer at home, because many times you have to take printouts of tables and you have to, paste it on your notebooks, tables, algorithms. So it would be good if you have it. If you don't have it, it's all right. You can make a folder and you can send someone for the printout, but do take a printout and do all the recommendations separately. The recommendations would keep on going till 2, 3, 4 pages until and unless they end up before purpose and scope. So basically, till here is going to be your recommendation, right? Shweta, I can understand, right? So definitely, yes, for my MRCPA, for my EPCOC, every time, because I'm the type, so I used to take so many printouts. So, your own printer definitely helps. But if it's not possible, everybody has got, his or her own circumstances, you can send for the printout. But for the tables, algorithm writing down takes lots of time. So you can simply take a printout of the table and you can just paste it on the notebook, all right? Okay. Now, till purpose and scope, basically you have done with your recommendations. Now, how would your notes look like? Now, this is Prachi's notes when I've covered up all the recommendations, and I should have a grip over the recommendations. So the clinicians must remain alert to the possible signs and symptoms, the possibility of OHSS. The symptoms and signs should be clear on the clinical criteria. They should be knowing about the severity of OHSS and their grading. And there are certain licensed centers, they should comply with the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority regulations. And the units that treat the women with OHSS should inform the licensed center. Now I'm a student, right? I don't know anything in terms of the importance of these, but I'm learning these recommendations because I'm starting the guideline. In the second and the third go, you people would see that how I become a good student, a learned student, okay? The fertility clinics should provide the verbal and the written information, and they should also have a 24-hour contact telephone number. All acute units where women with suspected OHSS are likely to present should establish the agreed local protocols for the assessment and management of these women. And licensed centers should have a close liaison and coordination with acute units where their patients may present. The women presenting with symptoms suggestive of OHSS should be assessed face-to-face by a clinician. And if there is any doubt about the diagnosis or if the severity is likely to be greater than mild. Harshita, iPad, I always make through good notes. And that's a very good thing. I always make through good notes. And that's something like I'll tell you in the end. Harshita, save this question. Don't forget it. Just after completing this, I'm going to tell you about that. Okay. Don't forget that because I've got very good tips for that. All my folders are saved in my iPad. Okay. All right. Then outpatient management recommendation regarding the fluid intake and output management, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents should be avoided. So I'll put a cross in my notes that it should not be given right now because it's my first go. I don't know importance of all this, but I find while reading this, okay, NSAIDs should not be given. Yeah, this is an important point, right? Women with severe OHSS being managed on an outpatient basis should receive thromboprophylaxis with low molecular weight heparin. So this also seems important to me. Okay, LMWH needs to be given. Paracentesis of ascitic fluid may be carried out on outpatient basis by the abdominal and transvaginal route under ultrasound guidance. Okay, this is a recommendation. And women with OHSS being managed on an outpatient basis should be reviewed urgently if they develop symptoms or signs of worsening OHSS in every 2 to 3 days. All right, so they should come every 2 to 3 days. And hematocrit is a useful guide to the degree of intravascular volume depletion. Now, I am writing all this. Okay, they tell me in the recommendations that hospital admission should be considered for women who are unable to achieve the satisfactory pain control, are unable to maintain the adequate fluid intake due to nausea, shows signs of worsening of OHSS or have the critical OHSS or cannot come for the regular follow-up. Now, Satsri Pranita, because today I'm not teaching you OHSS. Had it been a teaching, I would have told you the meaning or the recommendation or the interpretation for MRCOT Part 2 for each guideline. I'm a student at the moment and I have given the first go to this guideline, right? So these are my pages for the recommendation, which I have copied for myself. And this is my first step of reading a guideline. At least I know that this guideline says what we need for the multidisciplinary assistance. The features of the critical OHSS should be in the intensive care. Okay, I understand that. If a patient is admitted with OHSS, has to be seen at least daily. Analgesia and antiemetics should be given for the symptoms, but avoiding the NSAIDs. So no NSAIDs here. I have read it from the recommendations and I've learned it. Fluid replacement by the oral route guided by thirst. Okay, I've learned it. And if at all the patient has got persistent hemoconcentration, we need to have anesthesia input in that situation. Diuretics should be avoided because they further deplete the intravascular volume. And if at all the paracentesis is required, if she has severe abdominal distension, shortness of breath, respiratory compromise, secondary to the ascites, and increased intra-abdominal pressure, or if it's an oliguria, despite adequate volume replacement, we need to take a decision of paracentesis. Now, the recommendations have ended to the point that paracentesis should be ultrasound guided. And if it's more fluid removed, intravenous colloid therapy should be done. Women with severe and critical OHSS should be given low molecular weight heparin. I find it an important point as a student while reading, so I've highlighted it for myself. Women with moderate OHSS should be evaluated for some additional risk factors for thrombosis, and they should be given anti-embolic strokings and low molecular weight if indicated, because in the upper recommendation, they're saying severe or critical OHSS should receive low molecular weight heparin. That means moderate, we have to analyze as per additional risk factors, right? And then they say that if the patient has got some additional problem in terms of coincidental torsion, surgery would be required. They say that when in the recommendations that the pregnancy is complicated by OHSS may be at increased risk of preeclampsia and preterm delivery. All right. Yes, definitely. Yes, Adam, it's being on record. So definitely you'll get that. Okay. Now what we have done is we have done the first read. Okay. Now, just for my own assessment, I have taken 2 hours for this. Do you guys think, I'm not saying that kids around, television around, or in the kitchen. If you separately give time for the first read, please, and making this separately in just one sheet, only the recommendation. Am I right in saying that 2 hours are fine? Yeah, but I understand that at times it happens that, we read 2-3 lines and then we just get some tasks to be done for some children, and then we come back and then we cut a fruit and we come back. Not like that, please. If separately you are doing this without any interruption, 2 hours would be fine, right? I want to tell you guys that it's doable. It's not something, it's just the step number 1, right? I expect you guys that please, when you're reading, put everything aside. I mean, your task for the kitchen, your task for your kids' responsibility, everything, please settle that and then sit for 2 hours and do the recommendations. That would definitely be, Noor, if you have your hospital and you have to do this guideline, the previous day you will gather up the recommendations and then you'll read on duty. But the recommendations you'll gather up previous day because next day is your duty. So we have to work on the duty days like this. Got it, Noor? Okay, what is step number 2? Step number 1 is for those who actually don't have time and they only have 2 hours. At least recommendation is my minimum requirement. That is my minimum requirement, which you have done. If you can give additional 1 hour, then you will start from purpose and scope, and you will read the details. Now, in reading the details, there's a way of reading the details. The reading details, it starts from this purpose and scope, right? Before that were recommendations. So whatever you understand that this point is not in the recommendation, I find it's important. Afreen, where are you, my dear? Noor, Prachi, everybody, please. In the guideline, you people would see that there are certain Cochrane data, there are certain researches, there are certain abbreviations in terms of the hospital workups have been given. Please ignore. If one or two odd one out questions would come from there, we'll do it from the strategy, we'll do it from the exam tested question. Do not pay extra attention because you can't memorize those researches. They are just to reach to the recommendation. For example, Prachi, if they are giving you some sort of a complete detail that, you know, these much patients we took and this was the outcome, they are giving you the background of what was the reason that we found that recommendation. Do people understand? Now, when I will do the guideline, for example, I read the introduction and I saw from this point, please, everybody, please pay attention here. Exposure of the hyperstimulated ovaries to HCG leads to the production and pro-inflammatory mediators. Chief among these is vascular endothelial growth factor. All right, so now I see it's not in the recommendation. So what I'll do is that I'll take a different pen, or for that matter, if you're doing copy paste and you're doing that on your laptop, you will change the ink color and you'll do it in the different. So you know that what are the recommendations color and what is the detail color. So now is the detailed reading part. So whatever you read in between, you take those points only. And if somebody is doing the good notes, that's beautiful application. All my OSCE notes, all my students' notes, whatever I have to work, I always work on the good notes. Now, it's not their promotion, actually. It's very users friendly. You keep on highlighting, you keep on, scribble out there. It's very users friendly. On the iPad, it's available. And I think in the Android, it's available as well. That gives your saving documents very easily, it's done. Because one of the difficulties is when you have to travel, you can't carry up lots of books. I mean, I remember that students, they tell that, ma'am, complete one bag is only my books. So if you're doing and saving the things online, that gives you a benefit that, okay, your folders are saved and it's like easy nowadays when you have to, study as well, when you have to travel as well. Okay. So in the second go, you will highlight from the details and you will put these points. Now I'm taking all these points. For example, it's written somewhere here in the diagnosis that early OHSS usually presents within 7 days. Now I don't know that it's important or not, but I find out that, okay, I should be knowing about this, that early OHSS is usually presenting within 7 days of HCG injection, and late OHSS presents like 10 days or more after the HCG injection. Okay, so 7 days and 10 days seems to be important, right? That this criteria I should be knowing about. Then when I go to the detail of the guideline, I see, okay, table 1 and table 2 regarding the history and examination is given. So I'll print out that table and I'll put it in my notes, right? So Sapna, I'll tell you, my dear, I'll send the picture in the study group, okay? So yeah, thank you very much, Noor. That's really helpful, the good notes application. Onset, trigger, number of follicles, number of eggs. So the relevant history I'll paste. Now coming to the other table, which I get like examination, I'll paste that examination and investigation there as well, right? That would help me that now, okay, tables and algorithm. Generally, let me tell you guys now, coming back to the mentor side, that tables, algorithms are super important when it comes to the Green Top guideline. Every time the questions are formulated, even from the NICE and the TOGS as well. Whenever there's some table, that should not be missed, right? And then I see the RCOG classification. I found it in the recommendations that it is important. In the details, I found it, the mild, the moderate, the severe, and the critical OHSS, right? Now I'm pasting all this in my notes. And what does my notes contain now? Now, if it's all the tables have been done, you have done the detail of your guideline, it would take another 1 hour because the recommendations you have already done. Okay, so you've highlighted the points in between. Whatever points you think are added, you're going to change the ink and you're going to put in the notes again to make it the step number 2 detail. That would include everything which is inside, which was not in the recommendation, which you feel is important, that might not be important for exam point of view, but while reading, you think that, okay, I should be knowing about this. right? That is about the hospital admission requirements. That is about the worsening of the OHSs and the tables, which were not in the recommendation. So now in the end, how does the notes appear? Now, once you have gathered up everything, for example, I'll give you one example. They were writing in the recommendation that NSAIDs should not be given. This was the recommendation. When I came to the guideline in between, can you see, all of you, can you see here? This purple highlighted part? The recommendation was that analgesia and antiemetics may be used in women with OHSS, avoiding NSAIDs and medicines contraindicated in pregnancy. Everybody, are you with me? This was the recommendation, right? Recommendation. The second thing which I have to tell you is that after recommendation, when you reach up to this point, you read in the paragraph that NSAIDs should be avoided as they may compromise the renal function, right? And they give you that paracetamol and opiates can be used, right? Paracetamol and opiates can be used. So this point was not in the recommendation, but you should write in front of that. So that means that there are certain points you will find from the details which are important to see. But hardly on one page you can see, hardly you will see 2-3 lines. You don't have to go. Can you see here? You don't have to go into these all Cochrane's and the research that has been given. The odds ratio, the confidence interval. This is just to tell you that how the recommendation was made. For once, if you go through that big paragraph, that's absolutely okay. But you don't have to basically copy that paragraph because that is not required. You need not read it again. So on each page, you might get like 2 or 3 points. That's it. So what are we going to do now? Now we have completed our second go. How do my notes look like now? Now, the same notes which we made, we have added the red color. That was the detail which we had put, for example, the vascular endothelial growth factor, right? And then it is going to be early and late OHSs. We have put wherever we got this information, we have put in the notes at that very point. We have put the tables in our notes. And in the end, when NSAIDs, see, when the NSAIDs point has come, I've written in front the paracetamol and the opiates can be chosen. And where there was a point of clinicians being vigilant for signs of severity of OHSS, we have put those severity signs. That means what? That means that now our second go, this guideline is complete. We don't have to go. We don't have to go back to the guideline again till the exam. Our notes are absolutely sufficient. And at the end of the notes, we will make percentages page or a small sheet, a small stick-on of that GTG. That is the way to remember. So when your notes are ending up, the percentages of OHSS GTG you're going to put together. All right, so women with severe OHSS demonstrate hypovolemia with a typical loss of 20% of their calculated blood volume in the acute phase. So the combined incidence of moderate to severe is like 3.1 to 8%. And the incidence of thrombosis being estimated to lie between 0.7 to 10% of cases of OHSS, right? So what I mean to say is that in the end, make one page of that percentages. Even if you don't understand, in the third go, your percentages would fill up. Do people understand till point 2? The step number 1 of the GTG read and step number 2 of the GTG read is clear. If these 2 reads are clear to you guys, your job for now is done till my session. You will open it up during my session and you will highlight the points which I'm telling to you guys and you will mark it there, right? Let's come to the step number 3, which you people are doing in my open Telegram. What is that? Now you people will understand, Noor. Shall we? Aisha? Now you people would understand that we made our notes, right? Now we are doing cover to cover books. Okay. So while reading the practice books, now I would understand. I was Prachi while making notes, right? Yeah. So while making the notes, when I was doing these notes, I didn't know the importance. When I come to this, I realize, oh yes. So there is an Andrew Sizer single best answer, which tells us about the features of the severity of OHSS. It tells us there's this Andrew Sizer single best answer that where we have to report the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority. There's a question in Andrew Sizer which says that which type of OHSS you have to report to HFEA. The answer is severe or critical. So now on my notes, I'll mark it, right? Brian McGowan has a single best answer. What is the pathology behind this OHSS? The answer is the vascular endothelial growth factor. Now I understand, oh wow, how important this was. Now I'm going to add these points. Kunje has got a single best answer. Which criteria would tell you that it is an early ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome? And there is a point that 7 days of HCG injection, from 7 days within the HCG injection, 7 days of pregnancy, 10 days from HCG injection, 10 days from the pregnancy. There's so many 7 days option. And I realized, oh my God, what was that? Was it 7 days of HCG injection or was it 7 days after she gets pregnant? I open up my notes and I see, oh yes, it's 7 days of HCG injection. Do you people think, would I ever forget this now? Would I ever forget this now that I've read it on my notes? I've correlated it with Kuje's single best answer and I've marked it here. I will have such a wonderful memory of this that I would never in my life forget. Yes, I know that in my notes, I've read it in the recommendation. Now I've seen the Kunje single best answer and now I know it. There's a single best answer in Sir Kunje's book which says that which patient would have reduced risk of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. And when I read that, I said, reduced risk? Oh my God, I've read the complete guideline. I'm Prachi, right? I was making notes, yeah? Prachi thinks that I read the whole guideline. I don't know, from where did I miss it out? I go back to the guideline, I think, oh, I have written that increased risk is with previous history of OHSS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and increased AFC. So Kunje's answer is with decreased AMH levels are decreased risk of OHSS. Do you people understand? That now I would never forget, okay, increased risks are given here of OHSS and Kunje question is asking about the decreased risk of OHSS. So I would never forget it. You will find all the single best answers regarding categorization in all the books. I am doing a question in mastering and the question says that most common electrolyte imbalance in OHSS. And I go back to my notes that I didn't understand this. But then the guideline says that hyponatremia is most common. I missed that in making my notes because I didn't find it, Yusra. I found it like a very common thing. I didn't pick it up that it's important, right? When I saw the question, I said, oh my God, how did I miss it? So now I won't forget that hyponatremia, it's given in mastering. So there's another single best answer in Sir Kunje's book, which says that most common cause of death in OHSS. So I was like, I didn't read it in the book. And this question is not from the Green Top Guideline. This question is from the talk article. But from the book, I remembered it and I have put it here on the table that most common cause of death in OHSS is thromboembolism. Vinutha, do you people get me? Yes? Brian McGowan has a question of moderate OHSS giving the symptoms. Andrew Sizer has got a question of mild OHSS. Tahir Mahmood has got a question of severe OHSS, right? Andrew Sizer has a question with ovarian size of 9 centimeters. So that means that there's a moderate OHSS given there. Do you people now understand that when we come to step number 3, we are doing books not for this reason that, you know, we are doing it for the sake of doing. No, we have to make a memory. We have to be better. And if reaching at this 3rd step, while doing each book, for example, you do 50 questions in the Telegram that day, out of those 50 questions, you have to reach out to your notes. Every time you have to reach out to your notes, the ones which you've done, okay, these questions, you just mark on your notes only. And your notes would be a perfect example of learning and memorizing. Tahir Mahmood has a question that what medication we can give for analgesia in OHSS. Now, what I remember from my notes is NSAIDs should not be given. NSAIDs should not be given. But then I remember, no, paracetamol can be given. So paracetamol and codeine is the answer. Now I would not forget this recommendation, right? And there's a question in Sir Kunja's book, which should not be given. Brufen is the answer there, right? Do you people get that? So this is very important. And then strategy has a question regarding that what investigation is useful to guide for the degree of intravascular volume depletion. And I'm very happy because I've read this question. I would immediately say, yes, hematocrit, I remember from the recommendation, but I put it on my notes, right? So Kunje has a question that which medication or which type of the IVF treatment should be avoided to avoid the OHSS. So the gonadotropin agonist is given there, which is again from the recommendation. Do you people understand? Now, do you people understand that how the notes are perfect, how it's easy? I'll give you one shortcut of this as well. That's not a problem. Strategy has one question that if a patient gets pregnant with OHSS, what can be the complication? Now, if you remember it, that's perfect. If you don't remember it, go back to your notes and see, all right, so preeclampsia is one of the complications which can happen. All right, okay, got it, please? Thank you very much. So in this situation, this is taking time looking at you, my dear. You're doing all this side by side. All this you're doing side by side. Everything is going to be there, Neha, my dear. Don't worry, in the study group, it's there. When I come to my percentages part, the single best answer of Kunje is about the mild OHSS, and they have not got 33%. 1:3 they have given. That is basically the question which is given. Now, the step number 4 is that you are doing around October, you will be starting, or August, September, and you're going to start your exam tested question. So it won't be anything haphazard. We are taking one guideline that time, right? So whenever you see any question which is exam tested, you can make any mark for that. You know, you can put any star or you can make any highlighter so that you know from that guideline what's coming. Like severity of OHSS and reporting to HFEA is an exam question. So I'll put on my notes the star, right? Now, this fourth go is not, fifth go is not now. Only step number 1 and step number 2 is now. Step number 3 goes side by side, and step number 4 goes like till the end, till the exam, right? So notes are not final. Notes you keep on adding points, you keep on marking the questions on the notes. Simply write Q. That adds on to your memory. That's a way that you're going to just add on to your memory, right? So whenever I'll do the exam tested questions, the symptoms extended match question comes in each exam. I see that, okay, 2016, 17, 18, all have the OHSS symptoms and it's an extended match question. I'll put a star on that. So I'll put a star on the paracentesis. Paracentesis is a question which is an exam, and the worsening of hematocrititis is an exam. I'll just put a star on that. Okay, this is my exam tested question. About the category RCOG classification, it always comes, the severe is an exam, the mild OHSS is one of the exam question. So I'll put a star on that. That would really help. So in this way, low molecular weight prophylaxis is overlapping with Green Top Guideline 37A. And again, I'll put a star here. That would help that this guideline has this question that we have to give for the severe and the critical low molecular weight heparin. That is your exam question. So again, I'll open the notes and I'll highlight, okay, these are the exam tested question. The moderate to severe OHSS 3.1 to 8% has been coming in 2020, 21. Even in the recent exam, they asked this percentage. So I'll put a star on this. So when you'll be doing your revision, you will be knowing all the books recommendations, the exam questions, you would be knowing everything. So that would all be important. And what would your final notes look like? Let's do a quick recap. Step number 1, now read recommendation for today's guideline. Step number 2, just add the required details. Step number 3, later, whenever you're doing book, any 50 questions a day, from which guideline it is, just mark them later. So not a difficulty situation. You'll do questions so many times. You will have the, intensive discussion with Safa, intensive discussion with moderators. You will do the questions so many times. You will have an opportunity to open up your notes and mark on that. Step number 4, you mark the exam tested questions. And definitely, the point is not that people, they don't read for MRCOG2. The point is that they can't retain what they're reading. So what I'm telling you is the best way to retain. And it definitely is not a problem. So this is the final notes, how they look like. With all the marking of the exam questions, with all the marking of your recommendation, with all the marking of your exam tested and the books question. And this is how you're going to have a better memory. And it's just a matter of 6 pages as compared to 25 pages of the guideline. Do you people understand? This is the final look of your notes, which I tried because, of course, it's a PowerPoint. It can't be that, closer to the reality, but I tried to give you the concept that how you can make, because from the last 1 week, I was getting so many messages, right? Recap taking us. Yeah, this Noor, you're going to get all the recording, my dear. All the records are going to be with. Yeah, please. This is a recap. All right. Okay, that's like my girl, Sarah. Thank you very much. Yes, Afrin, am I clear now? Right? Okay, so now I can understand that every student is different. Few of you are at home, few of you are at breaks, few of you are with very busy hospitals and busy routines, few of you don't have the support in terms of like household you people have to take care of. I totally respect and understand. According to that, we can just mold ourselves.